Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're tackling a really vital topic, how we actually defend our coastlines. But we aren't talking about pouring giant concrete walls or building massive sea barriers today. Instead, we're looking at soft engineering strategies. These are really fascinating natural methods that work alongside nature rather than fighting against it to protect our shores from the pretty incredible forces of the sea. Okay, let's dive right into this. To keep things simple, we've split this explainer into 4 distinct strategies. First, we'll look at beach nourishment. Second is beach reprofiling. Third, we'll cover dune regeneration. And finally, we'll talk about managed retreat. Let's get started. So, Section 1, Beach Nourishment. This is all about adding sand and shingle. What exactly is beach nourishment? Basically, it involves making beaches higher and wider by actively importing sand and shingle to an area that's been affected by longshore drift. Just picture dumping massive amounts of new sand to bulk up the beach's overall volume. What this does is create a really substantial physical buffer. It actively protects the coastline from erosion and flooding because all that extra material absorbs the heavy wave energy before it can even reach the land behind it. Now, whenever we evaluate coastal defense, cost is obviously a massive factor. And get this strategy is surprisingly cheap. At just 20 pounds per meter, importing sand and shingle provides a highly economical way to buffer a vulnerable coastline. But of course, every strategy has its trade-offs, right? On the plus side, because we're just using sand and shingle, it keeps the completely natural appearance of the beach while acting as a brilliant natural defense. Plus, a wide, beautiful beach is a huge win for tourism, which brings fantastic economic benefits to the locals. However, you have to get that sand from somewhere. Removing sediment from other areas to bring here actually increases erosion in those source locations, and it heavily impacts marine ecosystems there. Furthermore, nature is, well, unpredictable. Large storms can wash the new sand away, requiring frequent top-ups that drive up costs. And let's not forget, closing the beach down during those maintenance periods can be incredibly disruptive to the public.
Moving on to Section 2, Beach Reprofiling, Redistributing Sediment.
So while nourishment was all about hauling in new sand, beach reprofiling is about redistributing the sediment that is already sitting right there. You literally take sand from the lower part of the beach, right down by the water, and scrape it up to the upper part. By carefully moving the sand around, it creates a deliberately steep profile. This steep slope acts as a natural sea defense that's specifically designed to protect the cliffs directly behind the beach from those crashing waves. So, the crucial point here is the cost. Just like beach nourishment, beach reprofiling is incredibly cheap to implement. We're looking at that exact same price tag, just 20 pounds per meter. The massive benefit of this approach is pretty obvious. It's incredibly cheap and highly simple to execute. By steepening the beach, it successfully drains the energy from incoming waves, which directly cuts down on cliff erosion. But the frustrating reality here is that it's really only effective when wave energy is low. If a massive storm rolls in, it's going to wash that steep profile right back flat, meaning the whole process constantly needs to be repeated. And just like our first strategy, you have to close the beach down while the bulldozers do their work, which is a real headache for both locals and tourists.
All right, Section 3, Dune Regeneration, Building up dunes.
This one is fascinating. Dune regeneration involves building up sand dunes and actively increasing the vegetation growing on them. Whether you're building completely brand new dunes from scratch or just strengthening the ones that are already there, this living biological barrier is highly effective at preventing coastal retreat and stopping flooding. To really visualize how this works, let's break it down into 3 specific steps. Step 1, you physically build up the mounds of the dunes. Step 2, you plant a very specific type of vegetation called marram grass. Its roots literally act like a hidden net that holds the loose sand tightly together. And step 3 is all about managing us humans. You build wooden boardwalks. By giving people a clear, designated path, it actively discourages them from walking all over the dunes and destroying that vital, fragile grass. And this brilliantly illustrates a recurring theme in our explainer today. Yep, for the 3rd time in a row, we're looking at a baseline cost of just 20 pounds per meter. These soft engineering strategies can be remarkably cost-effective upfront.
Dunes look entirely natural, forming a brilliant physical barrier that just eats up wave energy. Even better, this strategy actually increases biodiversity. It creates brand new, thriving habitats for coastal plants and animals. However, this natural defense is fragile. Like we noted with the boardwalks, new vegetation can so easily be trampled by humans, completely destroying the structural integrity of the dune. Furthermore, extreme storm waves can still simply rip through and erode those sand dunes right away.
Finally, Section 4, Managed Retreat, allowing coastal erosion.
Managed retreat represents a massive shift in thinking. It simply means areas of the coast are just allowed to erode. We aren't fighting the water, we aren't building up sand, and we aren't planting grass. We are intentionally letting the erosion happen. I know, it can feel totally counterintuitive, giving land back to the sea, but it is a heavily calculated decision.
Now you might be wondering, why on earth would we just let the land disappear? Well, this strategy is only implemented in areas of low-value land, like farmland. By specifically targeting these agricultural areas rather than dense towns or expensive cities, authorities can minimize major economic and infrastructural losses while literally just letting nature take its course. Allowing this erosion actually retains the true natural balance of the coastal system. The material that gets eroded away here actually floats down and encourages the development of natural defenses, like new beaches, further along the coast. But man, the trade-offs are deeply significant. Farmers lose their entire livelihoods when their land is surrendered to the sea, which requires heavy financial compensation. Additionally, as the sea moves further inland, existing land animal habitats are completely eroded and lost forever. Now, what's really interesting about managed retreat is how it completely breaks the trend we've seen throughout this explainer today. We are no longer looking at a neat 20 pounds per meter. The final price tag depends entirely on the compensation that needs to be paid out to the people, like those farmers, who lose their land. Depending on the size and the market value of the land surrendered, this strategy could end up being incredibly cheap or astonishingly expensive. It's a huge gray area. We've covered a ton of ground today, looking at everything from literally dumping new sand on a beach to intentionally letting the ocean flood a farmer's field. All 4 of these soft engineering strategies offer a way to work alongside nature rather than just slapping down concrete walls. But as you've seen, every single choice comes with a really complex web of environmental, economic, and human trade-offs. So, based on the evidence we've unpacked today, which soft engineering strategy do you think strikes the best balance for the future of our coastlines? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.